Hey, this is a video response to Mephisto concerning indie games RPG. I was talking in my one of my recent video about how the suggestion to go and try out some of those indie RPGs to get some self-confidence as a GM regarding of fairness and all other kind of I would say moral emotions and relationships that comes into the game, like fair play, fairness, collaboration, and good behaviors, and all kinds of stuff. So when I was listening to the video, I was saying, I was listening to his definition of fair and the kind of problem he was having with fairness. And I was like, man, maybe you wouldn't be asking yourself these questions if you would have tried a couple of those indie RPGs, because those would change the way you approach these issues in the way you GM, or the way you are as a player, even in a traditional RPG afterward. So real quick dichotomy or distinction: in traditional RPG you have your GM, you have the player. The GM act really strong on the player. You have different kind of style, obviously, but most of the time the players are meant to react to the GM through a task-based resolution mechanic, and they are pretty much, they all I don't have the word. They pretty much all do the same kind of stuff regarding this relationship, player GM relationship. It's just they all revolve around this task-based resolution mechanic. And then when you go in the indie world, you get two kind of games. You have your STGs and your RPGs. Now, the indie RPG, they have a pretty similar task-based resolution mechanic than the traditional RPG, but some of them they have lots of big twists to them, big distinction, big differences. I'm gonna give you a couple examples. I will try to stick to RPG, but I have a couple STGs here, and some blur the line between RPG and STGs, but STGs being story games, and but some are really just STGs and they don't really have an RPG component to them. Now, what's interesting, even with for RPGs with STGs, is the fact that those games show you how to change the player GM or player or GM player relationship in the way you approach gaming. Me, like I said, the story was that I was asking all kind of questions about these things, these relationships, the player role, the GM role, and I was just going really mad about that. And guys like Tim and GDRD30 kept on telling me, go try indie games and maybe you'll find what you're looking for, and I did, and it was well worth it. And then I've been playing indie games since then. Never touched another traditional RPG, but I want to come back slowly and see how it goes. And I'm having a plan with Swamper now. I'm gonna try a quickie D&D 5 just to see if I can apply this mentality to my gaming, to my experience. So this video. That's what this video is about. So I have here the indie games I like. I want to discuss them real quick, see and express what they can do for your questioning, Mephisto, or for anybody who are frustrated with their gaming right now and they don't know what to do. And they've been playing traditional RPGs, and they feel like they are stuck into the different kind of issues that comes from that relationship between GM and player, and then the GM is not being fair, and GM is railroading, and the player doesn't have a choice, and all these kind of stuff. So, in no particular order, this is Burning Empires. So this game, what you do in this game, this is an RPG, and it has a really specific design. You are playing a graphic novel from what's his name? Christopher Mahler's. Christopher Mahler graphic novel. What's the name? Iron Empires. So basically is that Luke Crane, the designer, was just a big fan of Chris Mahler. So what he did is like he said, hey, what about designing an RPG that every time you play, you go through a really specific number of sessions that are distributed in really specific kind of interactions and scenes and phases, in which when you go through all of them, it reproduces it reproduces a graphic novel, a Chris Mahler graphic novel. So when you play Burning Empire, the GM, you have 14 sessions to complete the graphic novel, because Chris Mahler Iron Empire graphic novel was about an extraterrestrial race invading a world, a human world. And human or not human, but a world. They are just they come and they eat everybody. They get and they possess the invaders, you know. And so, as a group, you have your GM, you have your player, and then you choose either you are the invader or the invadee, and then you have the GM can be the human or the extraterrestrial or vice versa. So, and the GM is against the player. And it's like a game, and it's designed like that. It's not like an antagonistic GM. He's against, and you have the GM turn, and the player's turn, and then the whole mechanic. There's a scene mechanic with phases that forces you to do certain specific actions that you choose in your scene, and then you go through all these phases and all these scenes and all this structure to complete eventually the 14 sessions that are gonna be representing your own graphic novel, your own Iron Empire graphic novel. So that's the thing. When you play this game, this is what you play, and together as a group, before you get started, you do something called the world burner, which is like the creation of a world. Together as a group, collaboratively. So it's really hard to railroad. Actually, you cannot. It's just impossible by design. And it's not going to be a sandbox neither. So it changes the whole relation to the thing. And there's no fairness in this game neither, because when it's your turn as the player, you decide. And when it's the GM turn, he decides. So it's just, actually the GM is just there to play the antagonist. The story is told by everybody. Just an example. Feed. This is almost like an STG, but it's an RPG. Because you have your stats and your stuff like that. So in Feed, together as a group, you get together, and then you say what kind of story we want to talk about, what kind of story we want to tell, what kind of vampire. It's a vampire game. So every vampire genre you can think of, you can play. So there's no setting. It's just you go together as a group, you describe what kind of adventure, what kind of vampire story you want to tell, and then you just go with it. And so the GM role is kind of distributed into the story the collaborative aspect of the game. There's a mechanic that helps you as a player helps you act on the story as well. So the issue, an issue of being a railroad, or an issue of having a GM who's not fair on you, is less present, just by the nature of the design. So when you play this kind of game, you, as a player, you feel like you are contributing to the story, and you're not being told what to do. Dread. Now, Dread is a well-known game. Dread is it plays in one session, so it's not about a big campaign. It's just 3 hours of gaming, 2 hours of gaming. It's a good party game kind of thing. So this is not really an RPG. It goes way more onto, I would say, way more of like an STG game. But here, it's the Jenga tower that tells you what's going on. So it's not the GM. The GM just narrates stuff. You decide to act upon what he says. But the only place where he can be unfair is by the number of Jenga pieces he wants you to take off the tower. So it's really just there. So it's not gonna, there's nothing else that can happen. It's how can I say? It's like, it's just bringing the madness, because it's an horror game about dying and whatever it was, and then he tells you the number of pieces. You take off the number of pieces, and then you, if the Jenga tower that fall, you die. But if you're really good, it's not gonna fall, isn't it? So it's on your behalf. It's on your responsibility. It's not on the dice. It's not on a GM decision. It's like how good you can be. So it's a totally different experience about fairness, for example, than a traditional RPG. Then you have Torchbearer. Torchbearer is an indie game, but it's an homage, a tribute to traditional RPG. Again, GM turn, player turn in this game. You have, it's an RPG, straight RPG, really old school. But the thing is that in this game, since you have your turn and you have the GM turn, what you do in your turn is on you, and you get to control what's going on. So again, this distribution of responsibility that deflect and takes away a lot of the burden on the shoulder of the GM. Not the best example of a game where you don't have a GM presence that is strong, because the GM presence is strong in this game, but at the same time it's less than D&D or Pathfinder, for example, just because you have a GM turn, player turn, and different kind of move you can do that distribute the pressure. Apocalypse World. Now, Apocalypse World is an RPG from Vincent Baker. This is a classic. This is really good. Now, this is all about the attitude, the philosophy you have toward gaming. And this game is different because it has a move component in it, and it's about how can I say? It's about looking good, being cool, and not being a dick. So it's written in the rules to not be a dick, kind of thing. That's really interesting. So it's like you oh man, I don't know. It's been a while since I read it, but I remember one really interesting thing that struck me somewhere in this. It's like, if you cannot do something cool, or if you cannot do something interesting or meaningful or something like that for the others, you should shut up, kind of thing. So that being said, It's it kind of gives the player the responsibility to be fair instead of just laying back on the GM. You have to be proactive when you play this kind of game as a player. So that changed the whole thing, because in the traditional RPG, most of the time, the GM has to push the mechanic. The game doesn't run itself, so you have to push, and the player have to react, and sometimes the GM push in a direction, and no matter how the player react, it's not fair. Like you mentioned, you gave a lot of good example in your video. In a game like that, just by the approach it proposes you to play, kind of negate that aspect. It's kind of hard to explain. I'm sorry. I was not really. It's far in my memory. Human contact. That's an STG. It's not an RPG. In human contact, really similar to Feed, in a sense of you design the world before you play in it together as a group, and then you have your characters, and then you interact with the people on the other side of the table, kind of thing, and then it's just totally different kind of dynamic. Playing a game like that shows you that it's possible to tell a story without railroading. It's possible to tell a story collaboratively as a group. So it changes your paradigm of GM telling story. A game like that is really important for any gamer, any RPGer to play. Just play an STG like that where everybody tells the story together. It's kind of this. It's GM-less, kind of thing. So it's really important to try it out one day, and then when you go back to our traditional RPG, it smooths thing a lot, honestly. Siren by Megwin Baker. This is a game of, it's like you're running. You don't know what happened, and you're so every time you play this game, you play the same scenario all over again. It's like a one night thing. It lasts a couple hours and that's it. So you are people with psionic powers. You decide what kind of psionic powers you have. You don't know what happened to you, but you are running from danger. You don't know what the danger is. Go. Takes 15 minutes to start, piff paff, and then you go. And this game is really good to show you that you can have a lot of fun in not a lot of prep. And shows you how a good design can help you actually can run the game itself. Like, here's the structure, jump into it, then follow the bandwagon. The bandwagon is already running. Just do it, and then you have fun. And then you don't need a GM. The player just talk to each other. Now, when you start getting used to games like that and you come back to traditional RPG, it changes your game. It changes your game, because instead of being a slave to the task-based resolution, reactive to the GM, now you become a proactive player. And doing so as a GM as well helps you bring your player to that level in a traditional RPG kind of thing. So, man, there you go, Mephisto. You wanted to have a little indie game RPG. These are the one I like. These are the one I own. I forgot Burning Wheel, but doesn't matter. It goes in all this distinction. So, thank you very much for watching, and I hope it kind of answers the question you had concerning what I was saying. All right, have a nice day.